Hello, friends. It's Amy Calandrino coming back to you with another episode of the Performance Mindset Podcast. I like to bring on interesting people to talk about commercial real estate, leadership, health hacking, all kinds of things that would be beneficial to your continued growth mindset in leadership. So today I have Dr. Arianna Becker, also known as Ari, on with me. And I've been following her Instagram for some time as she has a practice called Do Life Coaching and is really focused on helping you live life to your full potential. And she'll talk a little bit more about that. But I thought it would be really interesting because it's very important to fuel your mind, your body, your soul, and all those things. And, so it'd be great to have you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm so happy to be on your podcast. And I can't wait to share a little bit with the audience about some of the things I do to try to help patients lead healthy lives. So as you were saying, I really enjoy working with patients on improving their daily habits, because I think building habits is key to having a healthy lifestyle, like changing your habits in a positive way and like looking at the little things you do every day, because that's going to make the biggest impact. So I like to give up my patients a lot of tips on like quick little things that they can do. And, these quick little tips compound on each other as you continue to add more and more things that you add to your lifestyle or your habits. So that's kind of like what I like to do with patients when I'm working with them.
Well, what's really cool is I'm reading right now a book called The 5 Pillars of Wealth. And one of the parts that it's talking about right now is if you really want to effectuate change in your life, or you want to have some goals, even Tony Robbins talks about that it's systems and those habits that then help you to reach those goals. If you have a goal and you have no way to get there, then you're not going to be as successful getting to your goal. So if your goal is to be healthier, it would seem to me that you have to build some habits, you have to build a construct, you have to build a system to help you to do that. So
absolutely.
What are some like low hanging fruit? I assume you work with a lot of busy like executives and entrepreneurs and different people like that, where it's probably hard to stop and invest that time, in themselves, but they really need to.
Yes. So I think you're exactly right. When I talk to patients, instead of setting goals, I tell them we should set habits, because it's the habits that are going to get you to that goal. So I usually like to recommend that people, come up with like a vision board. And a lot of people get, it's kind of cringy saying vision board. So I call it a success planner. And I make one every January. I make a success planner, and, I'll print it out. I put it on my wall. And what I do is I break it up into different categories of my life. So I have family, I have habits, like health habits. I have travel experiences, like things that I want to accomplish this year. And you don't have to do it in January. That's just like when I like to get my reset for the year. Anytime you can make a success planner. But on that, what I'll do is I will set like daily habits. So like this year I wanted to, come up with a really great skincare routine. And it's something like small, but I wanted to do it every night. Another thing was every time I brush my teeth, I wanted to come up with, think of 3 things I'm grateful for. So I kind of developed a bunch of different little things that I want to be able to check off. And, sometimes vision boards can be like a lot of pictures and things like that, but I'm very like, I need a check box. I want something to check off that I did. And so I think that's the same with patients. When someone comes in for their annual physical, I like to say, well, like, what's your goal for the year? Do you have something that you really want to work on this year? And, a lot of people will give me something like, I want to eat healthier. And when they come in the next year, I can say, well, did you eat healthier? And they'll be like, yeah, of course I did. But if they set a really specific goal, like if I was like, well, give me something specific, and it was, say they wanted to like eat healthier. And I say, well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to increase fiber. Okay. How are you going to do that? I'm going to eat black beans, twice a week, a half a cup on Mondays and Wednesdays for the next 2 months. If they came back into me I could say, did you eat black beans 2 times a week, a third a cup, for the last 2 months? Did you do that? And they can say yes or no. But when you're so like general and you're so like, you're not giving something very specific, it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, like, just it's hard to say whether you did it or not. So I try to encourage people to be as specific as possible. We use something called SMART goals. And have you heard of SMART goals? I'm sure you have.
No, I have.
So
wait, well, SMART. Yeah, SMART is specific, measurable,
achievable or attainable.
Realistic.
Yeah, realistic
And time frame on
timely.
it?
Yep, time-based. Exactly. You got it. So I try to get people to do SMART goals where they really consider like the specifics of the goal. And I think that can be helpful. Another thing I like to encourage people to do is something called habit stacking. I'm sure you're familiar with habit stacking, but that's when there's something that you might not like to do or you might be procrastinating about. Sometimes we procrastinate so much and it just like builds the anxiety. Sometimes it builds depression when you're like thinking about this task you have to do and you're putting it off and and it's not good for your mental health, your emotional well-being. So I try to, tell people, stack it with something that you like doing. So say something small, like I hate unloading the dishwasher, something like that. But I love listening to Billy Joel. So why don't you put that on Alexa while I'm doing that? And then it's not as bad, do pair something with something else. Same thing with the brushing your teeth and thinking of like 3 things that you're grateful for. So like in order to make a habit stick, I think it's important to like put it somewhere where you're going to do it every time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like every time I eat a meal, I'm going to, drink a big cup of water like 30 minutes before. It's something that you can pair with something else that's going to happen naturally. So habit stacking, I think, is really big as well. When it comes to like patients and nutrition, like that's the biggest thing I like to work on patients with is like encouraging them to do more of a plant-forward diet and eating more like vegetables and fruits and things like that. I think making it easy is key. We're going to do what is easiest for us. We're going to do, the path of least resistance. If I'm working all day and I come home and I'm tired, I don't feel like going to the grocery store and buying a bunch of stuff and making something. I'm going to Uber Eat something because that's the easiest thing. But if I've planned ahead and I've, ordered a meal delivery service and I look in my fridge and, it's right there. I have Green Chef, ready to make. That's going to be a whole lot easier than the alternative. So I think it's super important to like think about little things you can do to make the best choice the easiest choice.
Well, I think one thing, I'm really active on Twitter and especially in the commercial real estate community. But someone started at the beginning of the year a retweet fit, which is real estate Twitter people fit. And people were sharing like different tips and different habits. And I don't know if it's the most healthy thing or not, but I noticed I was always like really stressed in the middle of the day as to like, what was I going to eat? And I started, doing the factor meals during the week. So now it's just literally, I do like generally work from home unless I'm out in the field. Now just, can eat that. And you can pick whatever, macros you're working on or what you have. And they're pretty good. And it's easy. And, because my kids aren't usually home and my husband's usually doing his own thing, then that's something that I have for myself that just makes my day a little easier. And then one thing I always do so I'm not hangry in the beginning of the day is I just grab like a protein thing, like an Orgain from like Costco. Probably again, not like typically the most healthy thing, but like, sometimes, it's better than having nothing. And,
no, I love it. I'm a huge fan of like the meal delivery plans. I think it's great. We've been doing Green Chef probably for a couple years.
I wrote that down.
I love Green Chef. I like that they have like a lot of plant-based options. With Green Chef, you do have to cook the meal, so it takes about 30 minutes usually. I love the factor because you can just microwave those, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's great. The convenience is key. Instead of, driving to some fast food restaurant, like you have something that's much more nutritious than that. And it's easier for you. And I love things that are efficient and, we're busy. We've got families and kids and we've got, you own a business. So we don't have much time to do things, for ourselves. It's not like we have time to, cook an amazing meal whenever we want to have something to eat. So I think finding things that work with your lifestyle is really important. Purple carrot's another one that I really like a lot. It's got a lot of it's plant-based alternatives. Sprinly is a cool one. With Sprinly, they do like all completely plant-based, all organic. It's like the cleanest meal delivery service that I've seen or that I've tried. And I actually reached out to them because I just love what they're doing. And they said that I said that I wanted to be able to, recommend it for patients, for people to try. And they gave me a little code. So they said if you type in Becker 15, you can get your first box for 15% off, which is, the meal delivery services, they are more expensive, but
Right.
I think you have to think about like your time, time is money and your health is important too. So if you have to spend a little bit more money to take care of your health, that's going to be less medications in the long term. That's going to be less hospitalizations. That's going to be less that you have to spend later on because you've developed a chronic disease. So I love the meal delivery services. There's a couple other I like. Oh, Daily Harvest I think is good for like lunches.
I've heard of that.
Daily Harvest is great. I've tried like all of them because I want to be able to tell patients about them. But Daily Harvest is great because you can freeze them and then you can. So like if I can't use them this week, I could use them in a month. And they've got a lot of smoothies, but they've got a lot of like bowls with like grains and vegetables. So I like that one too, but there's a ton. You just have to find the one that works for you and the one that, maybe works for your family because there are, you can get whatever amount or whatever size portions that you want. Usually you can do something larger if you want. So I love the meal delivery service. I think they're great. And, I think that's a huge secret to being successful and like staying with your nutrition goals. I also think like meal prepping is super important as well. So say you don't want to do the meal delivery services. You could, on a Sunday, this is what we do. Every Sunday, we pack the kids' lunches for the entire week. My husband, we pack all of his lunches for the entire week. And then it's just ready. Like you just grab it. And instead of, putting in like Lunchables or whatever, fast food stuff we can put in quickly, we've already got like a healthy lunch made for them that's ready in the morning so that we can get them to school on time.
Do you have recommendations? My kids are going to a daycare right now, and I feel like they're coming home like hangry because they're used to like eating really well, like at our house. And then like I pick them up and they're just like, ugh. They eat whatever's like there, and they're like, all they feed me is crackers. And so I think I'm going to actually have to talk to like the school and just like start bringing their lunches. I wish there was like a kid lunch delivery service, but if not, like, do you have on your Instagram any ideas of things to pack for like kid lunches?
Yes.
Or do you have an Instagram place you follow for those?
Yes, absolutely. So I've put a lot of stuff on my Instagram of just like pictures of things that we've done in the past. And, it's honestly nothing fancy. Like I'm not a great cook. It's nothing fancy at all. It's something that anybody can do, but we'll do like, berries. We have these little bento boxes, which I wish I had one sitting right here, but we've got these little bento boxes and, they're silicone, which I like. We've also got some like stainless steel ones, which I also like, just like what they're made out of. And, what we'll do is in like one thing, I'll put like, edamame or like sliced up carrots and maybe a little bit of hummus. And then in the other one we have some sort of fruit usually. So I'll do berries. I'll sometimes like try to think about what I'm giving them in the beginning of the week, like what'll last the longest. But the organic fruit, sometimes it doesn't last quite as long. So like, like raspberries and things, we'll put like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then something that might, grapes or something that might last a little bit longer, then we'll put like towards the end of the week. But I like to do for like then the main portion, we do a lot of like overnight oats, which
Okay.
they like a lot, and it's kind of fun for them, because they can mix like the fruit in with it. We'll do like Greek yogurt parfaits. We do like whole grain sandwiches. I a lot of times will do like sun butter or peanut butter with I put raisins on it just because I like to do something that makes it a little sweet, but I try not
Oh,
to do.
raisins are a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because it makes it a little sweet, and you can get those like ones at the grocery store that are like a little bigger and juicier, so it's kind of like jelly. But my kids are very sensitive to like the things that they eat, and if they eat a lot of sugar, they've got a lot of energy. So I try to make it like as much like whole foods as I can do for them.
That they have to work down. Yeah. Because it probably has sugar, but it takes a while to process it so they don't get a spike.
Exactly. Yeah, but I love
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of like great Pinterest sites where you can just like put in like healthy lunches for kids, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Like it's nothing I do is fancy on there. It's just like, and that's the healthiest, really, like raw fruits and vegetables. That's the healthiest thing. So that's what we do a lot of.
Or, I might just ride it out a little bit longer because, again, they have specifically, unless your kid has a reason, which we could probably get that like documented because like the sun. But anyways, I think, I have thought about starting to do dinners like more like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Because sometimes we end up being more like 7 o'clock, and started doing a meal delivery service because I feel like also if you have a meal delivery service, your kids can help you get it ready.
Yes, yeah,
easier, and it's like an activity that you're doing together, and it's quality time together. And again, you're saving yourself a bunch of time trying to think of what it is you're going to do. It's just kind of, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Because I used to, before kids, like think of what to cook, and I would curate these amazing things. And, but it's nice to just get the exact amounts of things that you need. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I like that you're cooking with your kids, because I feel like the greatest gift that you can give a child
yes,
is teaching them healthy habits. There are so many, habits that I've developed along the way that aren't the healthiest things. When I was in med school, like I would just like eat whatever was there. I didn't exercise. I didn't do any of that stuff. And it was never like a real priority for me until I finished med school, and then I did residency, and then I got my big girl job. And then like finally I had a little time to like consider my health and prioritize my health. And so that's when I got certified in lifestyle medicine, which, lifestyle medicine is there. I'm certified in family medicine, but then I also certified in lifestyle medicine because it's all about like making sure you're getting enough sleep, like doing all the basic things that people don't talk about. Doctors give you prescriptions, and definitely they're needed, but if we could treat the condition with a change in lifestyle, why wouldn't we do that? Maybe we don't need that cholesterol medication if we can work on weight loss, and we can eat a healthier diet and do those sorts of things. But for your kids, like that's why I got certified in lifestyle medicine, and for my patients as well. But I wanted to be able to raise them from the beginning in the healthiest way that I could, so that as they grow, that they, they don't struggle with things that maybe I struggled with, and that have to do with daily habits. And I do a lot of cooking with my kids too. Like on my Instagram, they like to make recipes. So I like film them, and they like make the recipe for us and kind of demonstrate like some sort of healthy, usually it's a healthy treat because they like treats, but we'll do like, chickpeas, like chickpea cookie dough, or black bean brownies, or like something like that, where they're still getting a little treat, but then they're getting a lot more fiber. It's got a lot more like plant-based ingredients. So I think, I'm trying my best to do that. Nobody's perfect, but I think the more we give them as children, the more we show them that, we exercise because it's important and we want to take care of our health, they'll want to do the same things.
Yeah. No, I've been taking my kids with me whenever I go to the gym for a long time, and then they hang out with the other kids. But then sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want to go. I just want to hang around the house. And I'm like, yeah, but mommy's got to stay healthy. She's got to like take care of you guys. And they're like, all right.
Yeah.
But like they also, because you'd be much more, successful with your life long term.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a lot with, what about scheduling? So a lot of it about is the food that you consume. What about taking time to like decompress or taking some me time? Because, you're a mom, I'm a mom, you work a lot, all those kinds of things. How do you fit that in?
I think it's essential to schedule time to decompress. And I think you have to make it like, you have to have boundaries, and you have to have like non-negotiable time that you are going to help care for yourself. And I know, like, I'm sure you struggle with this too. There's a lot of mom guilt when, you worked all day and you want to then come home and be able to spend time with your kids and be a present mom. But then you also are like, well, I want to be there for as many years as I can with them, and I want to set a good example for them. So that's why I think it's really important to like take that time to exercise and to make sure that they see that you're making it a priority too. And exercise is so good for your mental health and your emotional well-being. Like studies have shown that a low dose of Zoloft is like works just as well as routine exercise does. So I think it's essential to schedule time for yourself and to do things that, you want to be able to do to relax. So I think like meditation is very helpful. They have like sound bowl therapy. There's a lot of really cool things you can do. Just going on a walk, like by yourself, can be really great for improving. One, it can, lower your glucose. Like after dinner is a great time to go on a walk because it lowers your glucose and it helps reduce chances of developing diabetes. But like just all these little things that you can add in. And I think too, like,
that's a great idea. So if I push up dinner and then we go on a walk, that's a great idea.
I think that's amazing. I do think too, like eating earlier is a great habit. Eating earlier, because when you go to sleep, you don't want your stomach to be all full because you're not going to sleep as well. I like to recommend this 3-2-1 rule that I tell to patients, and don't eat anything 3 hours before bed. Like no food, no snacks, nothing 3 hours before bed. The earlier you can eat dinner, the better. Don't drink anything 2 hours before bed, and no screen time, no bright lights, no TV, no phone 1 hour before bed. So it's 3-2-1. I think people sleep a lot better when they're able to do these things. And it sounds like silly little things that, like, oh, that doesn't matter. But
I broke all those rules last night.
Yeah.
To get back on I waited for my husband to cook dinner last night and did not have it done until almost 8. And I said, we can't do this. We got to get it back in order. But no, I think you don't sleep as well if you go to sleep with the TV on.
Absolutely. And it messes with your circadian rhythm, because that light that hits the back of your eyes, like even though you don't feel it, like you won't sleep as well. And you might wake, like even if you fall asleep fine, you're like, oh, I fall asleep fine. It doesn't matter. But a lot of times people will like wake up randomly in the middle of the night because that circadian rhythm is off because of the bright lights that you're exposed to. And I think it's also very important to wake up at the same time every day. And right when you wake up, I think the brighter the lights are, the better, because it's telling your body like, this is the time we wake up in the morning. And then in the evening, dim the lights, have a really solid bedtime routine where you can relax and you can, practice some mindfulness and do those sorts of things to really get you in the mood to have some really good restful sleep.
I think I have some things to work on. What other things? So you talked about sound bowl therapy, working out, those types of things. What do you do? And back to food though. What if you were going out to eat? What are some different things that you do to keep things in check? Because I'm going out to dinner tonight.
Yes. I love this topic. Okay. So I've got some good tips for this. When going out to eat, a lot of times if we can pick the restaurant, then, try to pick the healthier option. But a lot of times somebody invites us to go out to eat and we, are going to go wherever they say. So I like to look at the menu beforehand when I'm not super hungry, and I'll try to pick a healthy option that I can be content with and happy with later on. So, just like they say when you go to the grocery store, when you're hungry, you're going to like put all this stuff in your car that like maybe not, it's not the healthiest. And at that point, you're just so hungry, you're just grabbing a bunch of random things. But if you think about it earlier in the day when you're not starving, you're going to be able to pick a healthier option. And when I go out to eat, I don't want them to think I'm a weirdo that's like picked my meal beforehand. So I'll like get out the menu, I'll act like I'm looking at it, but like I know what I'm going to pick when I go to that restaurant. And another thing that I think can be helpful is when you're ordering, try to order first. So if you order first, a lot of times you'll kind of set a good example for other people that are going after you. And it doesn't always work, but a lot of times it will, because if, someone's sitting in front of me and they order a salad and I'm about to order the burger and fries, I'll kind of be like, oh, like they're picking a healthy choice. And then I might do the same and pick a healthier option. But if you hear everybody else go around the table and order the burger and fries first, you're probably going to want to do that. So I think ordering first can be a really good tip, and picking something healthy. And earlier on in the day, splitting meals is great. I mean, our portion sizes are huge. And I think portion sizes is like one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people, struggle with weight loss, is because the portion sizes we get at restaurants are often like much more than what would be recommended for us. So splitting a meal, I think, is a great option. And if you don't have somebody to split with, you can also just ask for a to-go box right away. They'll bring one out for you, and you just like portion it and say, this is how much I'm going to eat. I'm going to save this for tomorrow's lunch. And then I have on my plate what I'm going to eat tonight. And I think that can also be helpful. I also try to recommend like 30 minutes to an hour before dinner. I think it can be really helpful to drink like a couple big glasses of water. When you're thinking about how much water you should get in a day, a lot of times they say take your weight in pounds, divide it in half, and try to drink that many ounces. So if somebody weighs 150 pounds, they should be shooting for, there you go. So you got your water. They should be shooting for about 75 ounces of water a day. Unless, there are certain conditions where people have heart failure or things where they've been told they have to restrict their fluid. But in general, that's a pretty solid rule that you can stick to. But if you drink that water an hour, 30 minutes before your meal, I think that can help prevent you from overeating when, some of that hunger you feel is actually thirst, if that makes sense.
That's true. Yeah.
I also think we can get into trouble with, the bread baskets, the chips and salsa. I think that can be really tricky, because when you're reaching out of like a bag or like a bag of chips, when you're reaching into something and grabbing, you don't really know how much you're getting. So something that can be helpful is like if you're eating, if you're having, chips and salsa, pick out how many chips you want that you're going to eat, that you would be like, okay, this is a reasonable amount for me to have. Put it on your plate. And then just eat that, and don't keep going back and forth. It's also good for sanitary reasons too. You got yours on your plate. A bunch of people aren't going in, flu season, so I think it's good for multiple different reasons. But I think that can be helpful as well. What are some of my other tips? I had a few others I was thinking of. Let's see, the to-go, ordering first. Let's see. Oh, another thing that can help is try to finish your meal last. Now, I'm not saying like be that person that like everybody's always waiting for, but eat slower, be more mindful when you eat. Like really like enjoy the food and chew it up well, instead of just like eating super fast like we tend to do, because, we've got things to do, places to be. Try to be the one who finishes last, because if you're slower, you're less likely to overeat. I think that is something, because your body will kind of tell you. And they say, stop eating when you feel like you're about 80% full. because the rest, that complete fullness will come with a little bit more time. There's also, this isn't necessarily when you're going out to eat, but like at home, if you use a smaller plate, your mind is telling you, that plate is full, instead of using a bigger plate where you might have like, you're going to add more to it because you feel like you have to fill that plate up, but you really don't. If you use a smaller plate, it's going to tell your mind that like, oh, like I'm having a decent portion here, I should be full, instead of that big plate where you might tend to overeat a little bit more because you feel like you have to fill that plate up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I've noticed anyways, when I go to events and such, used to be like 10 years ago, catering companies had these giant like plates. I think at any event, I think they've already kind of shrunk it, which kind of helps when you're at like, I went to an event earlier this week and I was like, oh, little plate, and fill it with the right things and lots of broccoli.
Absolutely. Yes. And like fiber foods like that, like broccoli, that's great to eat first because fiber is going to make you more full. And you want those like water fiber foods, like those leafy greens, those vegetables, things like that are going to make you feel full quicker. Eat those first because that will help with digestion and it'll help just make you eat less overall and not overeat.
We used to course our kids' food when they were littler and make them eat the vegetables first, but probably could keep them in that habit.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's great. I should start doing that with my kids. That's great because if, and that's the thing that you want them to eat. And, there used to be, the clean plate club where there was a lot of pressure when we were kids, like you have to eat every single thing on your plate. And you really don't. You don't have to eat everything on your plate. You can stop eating when you're full, but I would say try to eat those healthy foods first so that you're getting the nutrients that you need in the food. You should think of food as more like how are you going to nourish your body? What vitamins and minerals are you giving your body to be able to do the things you need to do, to exercise, to think clearly, to sleep well. I think that a lot of times we don't think of food in that way, but it's helpful if you kind of change that mindset.
That is a thing my husband really started talking about, like food is fuel, fuel. And so we kind of think about it in our body. We use that kind of terminology actually with our children. And it's interesting. I don't know if it's too much, but they're like, yeah, they're giving me crackers at school and we're not getting enough protein.
Yeah.
like, there's too much fat in this. And I'm like, you're 3 and 5 years old. Like,
I know.
And they're like looking at the labels. And oh my gosh. Oh, we were in Publix the other day and he's like, that has folic acid in it. It's poison. And he's like screaming it at Publix.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Yeah, my kids do the same thing. We're vegetarians. Like we eat, we try to do mostly plant-based. We'll do like fish every once in a while. We try to limit cheese, but we don't eat any meat. And that's been tough with my kids, when we go out to eat. And then they're like, oh, they're eating a burger. And I'm like, it's okay. They can eat whatever they want to, it's all, a choice and everything in moderation. But they meat shame people. And I'm like, please stop meat shaming people because nobody needs meat shamed. And, this is just what what we're choosing to try to do as a family. And like, whatever, sometimes they go somewhere and they eat something that's not, what we're trying to do at home. But at home, we try to do mostly plant-based just to kind of get them in that habit. And honestly, I think when we made the switch to being vegetarian, we did it like 3 years ago, I would say. It was like a big shock to like our families because like, like food is tied to your culture and like, these recipes that like, your mother gave you growing up. And there's a lot more psychologically that's involved, I think, when you make like a change like that than people really think about. So that was kind of a tricky transition. And, but now like, everybody's open to it and it's very easy to eat vegetarian in Orlando. There's lots of options. There's lots of vegan options. But I do think that it has helped me make a little bit of a healthier choice. Because if I'm not getting the burger, then I'm probably not going to eat the bun and the cheese and the French fries that usually come along with it. Like I'm going to get the salad or whatever. And I feel like it cuts out some of the other stuff that I would eat a lot of because I'm making the vegetarian choice. And I do think that, like some of the, there's a lot of like the processed vegetarian meats things. And I'm like, I think the more like whole food, plant-based you can go, the better. So like, instead of doing like one of those like fake meats, we'll like try, we'll try to do like black beans, or like we'll try to do.
I was going to say like black bean burger or something like that.
Exactly. I think that that's like definitely like a healthier choice than some of the other like super ultra processed stuff that you can get.
And you could always dip your toe in with like a meatless Monday. Like I used to like every Monday. I think my number one vegetarian place I miss in Orlando is Dandelion Community Cafe. Like was in like downtown Orlando, and they had the most amazing like vegetarian chili.
Yeah.
And so good. I went there for like a long time. So, but
yeah.
No, I think it's good habits. Have your kids fall in love with vegetables.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And like we have one of those lettuce grow farm stands. So we've been like growing our own vegetables, which has been like cool because, it's like in our backyard, and they want to eat it more. Like last night, we had these like kale smoothies that it was like, it was like straight up like a whole bunch of kale that we had on our lettuce grow. So we put a bunch of kale in it. We put like some mango and some pineapple in it. If you put some like lemon juice on like the leafy greens, sometimes it takes that strong flavor away a little bit. It takes that away a little bit, but it also helps you absorb the iron in it. As a vegetarian, you don't absorb.
Lemon juice helps to absorb iron.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the vitamin C component. And you've heard of like people taking like iron with vitamin C. You can put like lemon juice on like a salad or on your leafy greens, and it's going to help you absorb that iron better because you're not getting as much when you're, eating vegetarian. Another thing to consider when you're eating vegetarian is, especially like completely plant-based, is B12. That's something that you have to supplement. You can get it in like nutritional yeast, which is that like cheesy flavored powder that a lot of like vegan people will like put on things. You can get it, but you do have to make sure, like usually you need like a supplement of B12 if you're eating completely plant-based.
Very cool. Well, and you can dip your toe into the water with all the things you talked about, like purple, carrot, green, chef, all those kinds of things. But yeah, I've had different friends in my life, and they're like, I'm going vegetarian, but then they're doing like processed like mac and cheese.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know that that's the point, but I grew up in Vermont, and whenever I go visit, like my grandmother had like fresh grown asparagus and all kinds of, so I really did like, I've always really liked vegetables.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And it's like your grandmother did it, and it's like in your head from when you were a kid.
Right.
And it's like then something that you've always liked too. So I think like it's so cool how we can impact like our kids' views on like food and health, and just really try to like encourage them in like a positive way around those things.
And I'm going to look into that lettuce grow stand because we just finally finished. The kids have like a little playroom, a little porch on the front, on the first floor of our house. And there's a little area right off of there where I was like, oh, we could put like a nice little, gardening bed.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, no, I think it's planting right now. We can plant for a little longer before everything dies in June.
Yeah. Yeah, we have not had ours for the summer yet, so I'm curious how that's going to go. But
I might have to bring it into their. I might bring it into their little playroom, which is like has glass. It's like a former porch, but now it might be like a little greenhouse now.
Yeah, you could. So, and they have like we use Lettuce Grow. That's the brand that I have, and they have indoor ones that like people just use indoors. Like that's probably. Most of the people I know who
actually
have
might do that.
Indoors. Yeah,
because they have room in their playroom, former porch to do that.
Yeah, and they can
I have
harvest
a little podcast studio, and so
they do.
I have a little podcast studio, and so like they don't have a playroom.
I got you.
So I've kind of like taken
like a little mini kids podcast studio. I was like, wow.
No, not yet. No, maybe one day. I actually, my friend's son has a podcast, and it's really kind of cool to listen to, all about mindset for kids.
Oh my gosh,
which is cool. I think it's the Davis Knight podcast. Knight. His dad is a dermatologist in the area.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
So his son Davis Knight has a podcast.
Wow.
So yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna have to
which is
look that
kind of
up.
cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
Very
so
cool.
share it with little kids. Well, it's been really good. I also want to talk a little bit. We talked a lot about food, but so as we start to age, what are some of the different screenings that men and women need to kind of think about to make sure they're kind of getting ahead of everything?
Yes. So I think it's super important to have a primary care physician. I might be biased, because I am one, but I think having somebody to go to make sure you're staying on top of all of these things is really important. And
give you a checklist.
And having a little checklist. Yep. Find a doctor who's got a checklist for you. And, because there's a lot of things that we might not, think to do. So 45 is when we are now supposed to have our colonoscopy, which is a lot younger than it used to be. It used to be 50. That's when people usually think, but 45 is now when they recommend that. 40,
wow.
40 is when we recommend mammograms for women. And we do that yearly. Colonoscopy, it kind of depends on how the results come out. If it's clean, you're good for 10 years. But sometimes they'll find a polyp. You have to go back a little bit more often. Pap smears, we start at 21. The cool thing about that is, like years ago, we used to have to get it every year. And recently, in the last few years, they changed it. And if it's normal, after 30, you only have to go every 5 years. Now, a lot of gynecologists will like you to still go for the well woman just to make sure everything's going okay, do the physical exam. But the pap smear itself, a lot of times we only collect every 5 years. Now, if you're over 30, if you're 21 to 30, then we will do it every 3 years because we're trying to pick up HPV because that's the leading cause of cervical cancer.
So it's not every year now, it's every 3 years?
It's every 5 if we're older than 30, and it's every 3. Now if there's an abnormal pap, then that's different. Then we're going to do, more often. But if it's totally normal, every 5 years after the age of 30.
Yeah.
And then, there's a whole slew of vaccines that all is, depends on age. Shingles vaccine called Shingrix. I think that's a really important one. That one we start at 50. A lot of young people get shingles though. So, I wish they would lower it.
Yeah.
I wish they would lower it because a lot of people get shingles. Maybe someday they will, but right now it's 50 for the shingles vaccine. Flu shot we recommend every year. The HPV vaccine, that's the one that we give kids usually. But if you missed it when you were a kid, we're right around the age, I think, where they, they came out with it. That can prevent cervical cancer and penile cancer in men. So they recommend it for both boys and girls now. Let's see. Bone density test. That one we don't have to worry about for a little while, but it's 65 is usually when we start. But we will do it earlier if somebody has a family history and their mom of severe osteoporosis or a lot of fractures, or if the person themselves has had a lot of fractures and we're like, why is this happening? And they've gone through menopause. Menopause is really the thing that kind of makes the bone density go down. So it's important to get the bone density test, the DEXA scan, to kind of check in on that. So lots of different preventive screenings that you want to make sure.
Well, you should get your blood work done every year.
Blood work, yeah, I recommend every year. Check your cholesterol, check your blood count, make sure you're not anemic. If you are, following a certain diet, like a plant-based diet, B12, vitamin D, I think are very important. And checking the kidneys, liver, and just kind of some basic blood work just to kind of check in and see how things are going.
I've heard before that the total cholesterol is important, but then the actual ratio between the LDL and the HDL is almost more important. Is that still the school of thought?
Yes. So this is something I'm super passionate about, is trying to improve cholesterol levels naturally through diet and exercise. And the LDL is kind of, we think of it as the bad cholesterol. The L, you want it low. Yep. The HDL, you want it high, H for high. So the higher the HDL, the more cardioprotective it is. That means, the less likely chance of having a heart attack, the higher the HDL. The higher the LDL, the more likely chance you are to have a heart attack. And, it's not, everybody is different, but if we're looking at a population as a whole, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is reduce the LDL, increase the HDL. The total looks at the HDL too. So that's why the total is like not really as, because you could have a like insanely good HDL and it'll like skew the total. So that's why I think it's important to see the HDL and to see the LDL.
Well, yeah, you could be over 200 on your cholesterol number, but because your like HDL is high added in with the other, that could be the reason for it.
Exactly. Yeah. And the triglycerides are kind of like a thing on their own, which they can cause a lot of, they increase plaque buildup, increased risk of heart attack, stroke as well, especially when it's with a high LDL. The triglycerides are usually from like sugary things like juice and soda and like white breads, white pastas, things like that. So
I can't remember the last time I've had a soda.
That's good. That's
no,
a good thing.
Like no taste for that.
When I was a kid, I remember I had like a limit and I was only allowed to have 2 pops a day. And then I was like thinking now, I'm like, I had that limit for a reason. So I was probably drinking more pop than that. There was a rule, like I had a rule there. So it's like, it's wild to think about, but I'm the same. Like I haven't had a, pop, and like juice was the thing that I drank a lot of. And we find out more and more as years go on about like what healthier options are. And so I don't really drink that much juice anymore either. Just because of like how much sugar it has. It's healthier to eat the orange than to have the orange juice, or the apple than to have the apple juice.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything we haven't chatted about that you want to kind of chat about today? I think you got a lot of tips and tricks.
Yeah.
And I think my show notes lady is going to put together a nice little summary here.
Yeah. I would just,
with some links. Are there any others of these that you have any codes for?
Say that again?
Do you have any of these other providers like Spinley that you have codes for?
Oh, no. Sprinley's the only one I have a code for. I've asked Green Chef, but they never responded to my emails. Maybe they will someday. Green Chef, though, does have like they have a lot. If you know somebody who does Green Chef, like they usually will get a free box. And like sometimes you can go online and they'll just have like the discounted boxes you can get to try it. So I would check out their website, because oftentimes they've got a pretty good deal just on their own that they give to anyone who wants to try it.
Well, when I did Factor, I sent a code to my friend, and she just like loved it. It was great. And so, if anybody wants any Factor stuff, just hit me up in my DMs.
Yeah. And usually like the cool thing about that is if you like it and then you recommend it to somebody else, a lot of times whoever recommended will get some sort of like, like a free meal or something.
Oh yeah. she got a bunch of free food.
Yeah.
And then I think she ended up deciding to sign up. So then I think I get something. So it's a nice, it's nice to get rewarded for doing something that's good for yourself. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And I really liked your analogy of thinking of it like an investment in your future, self, even though it's maybe more money, but you're also gaining more time by taking advantage of these different conveniences, and also setting a better foundation for yourself.
Yeah. And just like adding years to your life, I think like small, consistent changes is what leads to like lasting results. So I think like any little thing that you can do, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. Like just, try a little bit more every day. And that's going to lead to really significant impacts in your health.
Well, and I think too, if you do mess up and you're a perfectionist, and don't let that like derail you.
Don't let it derail you. Absolutely not. I tell people, try not to have 2 bad days in a row. You have, it's your birthday, you eat, more than you would have preferred, and
you do the burger and fries.
You do the burger and fries. You have the giant cake. You have a second piece of cake. Like you do all the things that you're like, oh, I wish. But you know what? That's okay. Like everybody's human. Everything in moderation. You have to live life a little bit, but try not to do that 2 days in a row. Next day, say, okay, get back on things. If you have 2 days in a row, that's when people fall off, because then but if you stop yourself after the one and you kind of get refocused for the next day, I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that. How do people get a hold of you?
So I'm on Instagram. People can send me messages on Instagram. I've got a website called dolifecoaching.com. I work one-on-one with patients, try to improve their health habits. I take a look at their lifestyle and we just say, well, we can exercise here. We can try this meal service, just try to help guide them in little changes that I think can make a big impact. So I would love to help anybody who is interested in just trying to improve their health.
Yeah, this is awesome. So, well, let me close this up. And speaking of perfection, my book From Perfect to Real launches April 10th. I don't know if this episode is before or after then, but regardless, it is already on Amazon. From Perfect to Real, embrace authenticity, shift your mindset, and thrive on your terms. And it's also available on Ingram Spark. So, and then you can check out more about me and my brokerage at amycalandrino.com. I thank you again for listening to the Performance Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Amy Calandrino, signing off.